The motor was originally a 1942 truck block, and in those truck blocks they had a slight relief to them for better breathing, where it was some of the material was cut out between the piston and the valves to allow more airflow. And actually the motor had been modified to 3 5/16, bored out to 3 5/16 with the stock Ford 3 3/4 crank. And I did some polishing, polished the ports, matched the ports to the manifold, finished up the relief, and bored it another a 1/16 and put the 4-inch mercury crank in. So that gives it a total of 286 cubic inches versus the 239 that would have been stock. And the engine's been balanced, and it's got heavy valve springs and a big oil pump, and it probably runs as good as a hopped-up flathead can run. Back in them days, you didn't have the option of plastic fillers in that. You had to use body lead, and I used a acetylene torch to weld everything back together, which causes a lot of distortion in that. Of course, the torque tube had to be shortened up, and the spring mounts had to be shortened up to accommodate the 32 frame, and they used the 32 spring, buggy spring under it. Taillights are 47 Buicks.
Okay.
With the round lenses taken out, and then I brought the exhaust out through where the other lenses would have been. This car was set up to drag back in the early days. It's got a roll bar in it, and a steel plate floorboard, so it was legal back in the late 50s as a drag car. Prior to '66, I proposed to some other gentlemen that were running a blown roadster with a 440 wedge in it, and that we go in together into a dragster. Ended up buying a Garlitz chassis, went down to Tampa and picked up a Garlitz chassis, and it was a 3-person partnership, which never works. And one of the other persons, the agreement when I went into it was, I will provide the car, you put the motor in it, but I drive. And one of the other gentlemen felt he was a driver, and it didn't work out. But we took quite a while to get the whole thing ironed out so the car would run decent. But we did do some winning towards the later season. But needless to say that we parted company, and I went into partnership with the gentleman I used to work for, whose name was Bob Willis. And at that time, Garlitz had moved over to Troy, Michigan. So we took it over there and had him stretch it out and build it for a Hemi. And as it happened, he had a gentleman by the name of Marvin Schwartz running a car for him, and he was breaking off that association. So we did buy the first motor out of Marvin's car, which it didn't take us long to find out wasn't the hot setup. But we ended up building another motor before the World Series at Cordova, and Garlitz set low ET at a 760, and we had second low ET at 765. And had I been a little sharper, I could have probably won that meet, but Chris Karamessinas put a hole shot on me and beat me on the second round eliminations. We didn't have any major sponsorship. We got our plugs from Champion, and we were getting our oil from a little outfit out of Waterloo, Northland Oil Company. We had to go out and run even Steven with these hot dogs, and it was really hard to establish, even though you're running with them. It was hard to ever get over the hump as far as being, Perdome and McCune and all them guys. When you come up to the line, you didn't have a handicap because your pocketbook wasn't as big as theirs. Basically, back then, we built the car, we built the body, we we didn't build the frame, but we built the bodies for it, we painted it, we built the engines, we chose the rear ends, and basically made them decisions ourselves. If you give me enough money, I will in fact have the country's fastest car, because I will buy the people. And that's kind of the sad part. Drag racing isn't an amateur sport. There's a few guys that have these little cars. They go down the track for the fun of it. But I mean, initially it's become a professional sport. There's big money in it, but it also takes big money to participate, and that rules out the average John Doe, you know. Yeah. Well, this is the typical 50s street rod, because at that point in time you didn't put anything on them that wasn't required to make them street legal or run. You know, everything else you basically threw away.